Good morning and welcome to the virtual exploration for all North and South Carolina students, sponsored by the Carolina Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are turned off, so the panelists cannot hear or see you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at CACRAO.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available in about a week at the same website, CACRAO.org. At this time, I'd like to now turn it over to our presenters.
All right. I'm just sharing my screen. Well, good morning, everybody. We are so glad that you all decided to join our panel today. Today, we're going to be discussing some tips for a successful 2-year to 4-year transfer. So this is for folks that are looking to start at a community college or a technical college first, be there for about 2 years, and then transfer to a 4-year institution. Please bear with us today. This is myself and my colleagues' first time using this software, so hopefully we get it right, but bear with us with that. Again, please feel free to use the Q&A if you have any questions, but we're going to get things started with some introductions. I am Jenna Ranzo. I am a senior transfer counselor in the Office of Admissions at Coastal Carolina University. I have been in this role for about 3 years, and I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi everybody, I'm Renee Patchen. I'm the Director of Career and Learning Services at Central Carolina Technical College, so that's in South Carolina. I've been in career services for over 20 years, of which we really help students decide their transfer plans and how to choose a major and where they're headed next.
Hey guys, my name is Jessica Nettles. I'm with Horry Georgetown Technical College, and I've been with the college for about 4 years now. I started off in career services, but now I am in recruitment, and I love connecting with students and making sure they find the right spot at our school. All right, so we're gonna jump off. We're gonna get started here. So what you want to remember and keep in mind when applying to 2-year schools, first things first, you want to make sure you're getting to the money. So fill out that FAFSA. Once you fill out that FAFSA, go ahead and start the application for that technical college or that 2-year school that you're interested in. And then once you can apply online, you're going to be required to complete an orientation. And then, of course, meet with an advisor and register for classes. And we'll go over all of that in the next couple slides. Now, of course, it's very important that you fill out the FAFSA. And what is the FAFSA? The FAFSA is the Federal Student Aid. So if you are in North or South Carolina, you can apply for FAFSA. Now, how that reflects your tuition is based on whether you're in state or out of state. But FAFSA is very important because it unlocks that federal aid for you. Now, if you're in South Carolina, some of the federal aid that you can unlock, if you fill out that FAFSA, it's going to be that life scholarship, that lottery tuition assistance, that Pell Grant, and any workforce development scholarships that may be available. Now, if you are in North Carolina, of course, you have scholarships that are specific to you. So you want to make sure that you're privy on those scholarships as well, but it's very important to fill out the FAFSA. That's how you tap into that federal aid money. Now, just to give you an idea of the cost of tuition across the board, if you're applying to schools in South Carolina, as you can see with this graph that I made here, as you can see, some of the 4-year colleges are a little bit more pricier, but if you look down at the bottom there, you'll see HGTC, where our tuition lies. So even if you're in state or out of state, the tuition to come to HGTC is going to be a little bit cheaper than attending a 4-year university. And of course, you can see that based on the numbers in this graph here. Not to discourage you if you are in South Carolina to apply to 4-year universities, you definitely want to do that, but it's very cost effective if you do decide that you want to start out at a 2-year school like Horry Georgetown Technical College, because you will be saving a lot of money. A lot of times, if you're coming out of high school and you're getting those scholarships and you come to a technical college, the technical college tuition can be paid for with your scholarships. And that's how a lot of students end up saving money in the long run, especially if they're planning on pursuing a bachelor's or master's degree in the future. So starting off saving some money is going to definitely help you in the end. Now, when you're applying to these colleges, especially these technical schools, you want to make sure you go ahead and contact your guidance counselor about those high school transcripts. So whether you're in state or out of state, we're going to need a high school transcript from you. ACT or SAT scores. Now, currently, a lot of colleges are waiving SAT and ACT scores, but if you've taken them, we still strongly suggest that you get them submitted. So ACT and SAT scores are still acceptable, and we still want you to take those tests and submit those scores. Now, technical schools also offer placement tests, and these placement tests usually are administered in lieu of the ACT and the SAT. So if you have not taken the SAT or ACT, again, we are waiving test scores at our college. A lot of other colleges are doing the same, but keep in mind that the placement test is offered at a lot of technical colleges. Some of them have the AccuPlacer, some of it call it something else, but that will allow you to get placed in classes. Now, you'll also need a proof of lawful presence when you're applying to these schools. Make sure that you have at least your driver's license card or a valid ID card. If not, your social security card will suffice. You'll also need your parent or guardian's information. That's going to be very important because that's typically how they base your residency for the college. So determine whether you're in state or out of state. And a lot of times that parent information is how they determine any eligibility for anything else. So make sure that you are submitting that information correctly so you're not charged for being a student that you are not. And this last one here, an affidavit sometimes is required by other colleges for students to sign. And what that just means with a lot of programs, the HGTC, we have our allied health sciences programs. We also have our advanced manufacturing programs. And a lot of technical schools do have these programs that are short programs, but they allow you to get that hands-on, on-the-job training. And because of that, they require you to sign an affidavit just saying that you'll get a background check or take a possible drug screen so that when you're working in these facilities as an intern or as a clinical person, that you will be safe to their staff there. So that last one, sometimes it applies to you at a technical school depending on what you're obtaining, sometimes it doesn't. Now, the next thing you want to make sure you are doing is completing that orientation and meeting with that advisor. And orientation is so important for students because whether you're at a 4-year school or a 2-year school, it basically acclimates you to that institution. So 4-year schools are, attending that orientation is very important. If you don't know where something is, orientation is great for that. If you want to know how to get help with your resume, orientation will point you in the direction of career services. If you need help with tutoring, orientation orientation, again, just acclimates you to the college. And typically it is mandatory at some colleges. A lot of times it is optional. More colleges are making their orientations virtual so that they can accommodate students, which I think is great because you can just log in from home and go ahead and complete that orientation. And then once you complete your orientation and have gotten acclimated to the college, by then we are hoping that you are accepted to the college. Because if you're taking an orientation, then you've gotten an acceptance letter. So once you have done that orientation, you meet with an advisor and discuss courses for your major. Now you're going to be meeting with this advisor throughout your course at a technical college. So throughout your time at HGTC, every semester, you're going to be meeting with an advisor. And that's going to be very important in making sure that you stay on track with the courses for your major. So keep that relationship with your advisor. They're going to be your point of contact for a lot of questions regarding your particular program of choice. And then of course the advisor can also help you pick out classes and register for those classes. So building that relationship with that advisor throughout your 2-year experience is definitely going to benefit you whenever you transfer into these 4-year schools that you may be interested in.
Okay, y'all, we're going to shift gears. Jessica got you through the process of why should I consider a 2-year school first, and how do I get into that, and what are my first steps? And now when we talk about transitioning, you know, now at this point you would have gotten the hang of being a college student. You would have started to make some friends, figured out where your classes are, either virtual, online, or some back in person. What happens now is you start thinking about, well, what's my next step? Where am I headed after this? So yes, in reality, once you get started as a college student, we're already asking you to start to think about what's next. So when we think about this part, most of you all may be considering an Associate of Arts or an Associate of Science degree. So where's that going to lead you next? What career pathway am I considering? And what 4-year major will help get me there? But also, how do I find the school that best fits me and my future? So that's where your 2-year college support service area helps you make the best plans for your future after that. And we're going to go into detail now about your next 2 years and what to expect. So when we think about year 1, the most important thing is communicating with your academic advisor, like Jessica said. But one of the biggest decisions you're going to have is deciding between an AA, an Associate of Arts, or an AS, Associate of Science. They're not the same. They do have a lot of courses that are similar, but they're going to take you different places. So when we think about that, if you are thinking you're going to be pre-med or pre-law, you are going to choose differently. Any student who's thinking they may want to major in biology, math, be a math teacher, you are typically going to align yourself with an Associate of Science because the AS degree has typically more science and more math. If you're thinking about an English major, an elementary education teacher, law school, anything that may be a little bit more writing intensive, you're going to go the route of an Associate of Arts because those other classes there would be more writing intensive and more humanities, social sciences related. So that's going to be your first decision. Number 1, am I going for an AA or an AS? And that's why we need you to think a couple steps ahead of what majors are you thinking about. You don't have to commit to that 4-year major, but we need to have an idea to make sure you're in the right place for an AA or an AS. Now, typically during your first semester of college, you'll be taking a course called Freshman Seminar, Freshman Orientation, First Year Experience, something like that. And that course is typically designed to give you college skills. And a big component of that is also completing career assessments. Why we complete those typically in a freshman seminar course is we want you to start thinking about your future early. Some of y'all may already know where you're headed, but some people may be open to different options. So by completing those career assessments during your freshman orientation class, that helps you kind of start filtering through and getting a little bit more clarity of what some options are. And so let's say you enrolled as an AA student, but you're thinking you wanted to go pre-healthcare, pre-med, you kind of see yourself doing something in the medical field in your life later on, and you take your career assessment and it aligns and it shows a lot of medical fields of interest to you, and you're like, yeah, I think that's where I'm headed in my life, then we know that first semester would be the perfect time to switch your major from an AA to an AS to make sure you're getting all the courses you need to keep pursuing that pathway. Typically, we want any changes of major to happen within your first semester to keep you on track to completing your degree in 2 years, which gets you ready for your 4-year degree down the line. So maybe we'll be able to do a 2+2. So that's typically what year 1 is all about. Am I in the right major? Am I being a good student? Am I studying? Am I keeping my grades up? And do I know where I'm thinking about heading? That's what we look for year 1. When we think about year 2, that's when we really want you to start exploring the different transfer events. So typically on college campuses, they have different transfer events where we'll have a 4-year institution come in and talk in person or virtual and talk about their different programs. We have Coastal Carolina visit us several times a semester to promote what they have for our students. So they share those and they can answer specific questions, but also they just share basic literature. And we also host transfer fairs. Now, some of you all have college fairs at your schools or career fairs where different people come and you have a table fair in the gym and you walk around and you learn what they're doing. And that's typically what you'll see also at your 2-year school and at your 4-year school when you get to that point too. But those transfer events are designed to help connect you in person, virtually or live, with those connections so you can start learning and getting some options together for you so you can make the best decision for you. So then what's next that we want you to focus on is those transfer transactions. So once you've attended some transfer events and you've narrowed it down to about 4 different schools you're thinking about that are viable ones that fit all your needs. They have the major you want, they're in the geographic locations you're interested in, they have the financial aid package you really want, and they kind of check all the boxes for you. The next area is really doing those transfer transactions, doing all that business stuff. So have you visited the campus? That's a huge thing to do. Virtual is great, but in person is best because you really got to get a lay of the land and see how their environment fits you, especially if you're looking for a residential campus. You have to look at the applications. Do they have deadlines? What do they expect on these applications? What makes you the best candidate? You have to get your FAFSA together. You would have already completed a FAFSA for your 2-year institution, but now you need to complete your FAFSA again and tag it to the 4-year schools you're considering again. So you have to kind of get back into that FAFSA again like you do every year and just edit it some. You have to look for your final transcripts in the end to be transferred to the 4-year schools you're thinking about. So there's a lot of business information you have to take care of and making sure all your ducks in a row and you're checking all those boxes. Very similar to the types of application documents you need for your 2-year application are going to be very similar to what you're going to need to do again for your 4-year, because that's where we want to make sure you're checking all the boxes and you're connecting with them and you're fulfilling what that 4-year institution recruiter is looking for. So now we're going to transition to, I've met my recruiter, now what are they looking for?
Thanks, Renee. So now we're going to focus on making the jump. So after you have spent your 2 years at your community college or technical college, what you have to look forward to in terms of applying and choosing the right 4-year school for you. So what I'm going to cover is how to really narrow down your college choices, how to plan your transfer as far as what we look for as a 4-year school. We're going to talk about choosing the right courses for you to take while you're at the technical school to make sure that you're not taking any courses you don't need. And then lastly, I'm going to cover really how we look at, or how we're going to help you in terms of applying to those 4-year schools. So first of all, Renee had covered this a little bit, but I'm going to dig into a little bit more details about choosing the right school to transfer to. So a lot of factors that I usually tell students to take into consideration when they are looking to transfer. The first one is looking at the programs offered at the 4-year school. That is always the first thing that you want to look for. You want to make sure that the school offers something that you're interested in. Even if you're going in undeclared, be sure that the school offers different majors that may be interested by you. For example, choosing a liberal arts institution that offers many different programs. The next thing you're going to look at is scholarship opportunities. So you're going to want to see if these schools offer merit awards for transfer students. You're going to want to see, does your GPA carry over to the institution that you're transferring to, in terms of, do you need to meet a specific GPA requirement to keep any scholarships that you currently have, and will those scholarships transfer with you? Next will be tuition. Are you going to be able to financially support yourself at the institution that you want to transfer to? Next up is location. This is an important one, especially for those folks that decided to go to a community college to stay close to home. Now is your time to decide, do you want to move away, expand your options, or do you still want to continue to stay close to home? Another reason location is important, we offer marine science here. So offering marine science, we are right next to the ocean. So if you're looking to study marine science, I don't encourage you to go to school in Nebraska. Definitely think about your major, think about what you want to do with the major, and decide on a school that is regionally located nice for that major. Also, you have to think about, do you want a rural campus, a suburban, or an urban setting? Next would be housing. So do you want to choose a university or college that offers on-campus transfer housing, or that requires on-campus housing, or do you want to have the option to live off-campus? Those are all things that you can start to think about during your time at that 2-year level. So next we're gonna switch into transfer planning from a four-year school view. So my biggest advice to all students that are at a two-year school is to start your transfer planning process early. The sooner you start your process of knowing and deciding where you want to transfer to, the better off you're going to be. And more likely you'll be able to graduate still in that 4 years, rather than having it take longer by taking classes that you don't necessarily need. I always encourage students that first year or beginning of the second year, reach out to an admissions counselor at the four-year schools to start planning your credits. So you can really map out your courses, and you can do this for multiple majors. So whether you're taking the Associates of Arts or Associates of Science degree, you can match your classes that you're taking with prerequisite courses that are required at the four-year school. So if you are doing your Associates of Science degree because you know you want to go on to do biology, you're going to want to make sure that within that degree plan, you're completing the prerequisites that are required at the four-year school. For example, you're going to want to take college algebra and biology 1. That way, when you get to the four-year school, you're already ready to take those higher level courses. You also want to look at transfer agreements. So a lot of institutions do offer transfer agreements, and what these are usually 2+2 programs that will allow you to complete that Associates of Arts or Associates of Science degree at the 2-year level, and then be able to complete the last 2 years at a 4-year school. They plan it all out for you. So you can look into that while you're at the 2-year school. For example, South Carolina Technical Colleges has an agreement with Coastal Carolina University for students that do complete their Associates of Arts or Associates of Science are typically offered admission to Coastal Carolina as long as they meet the requirements. And then another thing I like to mention is the difference between completing an associate's degree before transferring and not completing a degree before transferring. Now, the biggest difference here is the amount of time that you spend at the 2-year school. Now, when I'm talking to students, I always encourage them to, go ahead and complete that degree if you can. Not only are you going to save money, but you're also going to benefit yourself because a lot of schools offer a core curriculum waiver. And what that means is that if students have their Associates of Arts or Associates of Science degree, they can be eligible to have all of their general education courses waived. So here at Coastal, we do have our core curriculum. It's about 40 credits. It does involve some foreign language. Often I see students that come in with their Associates of Arts or Associates of Science degree that have never taken a foreign language, and they're very excited to hear that because they have the degree, they actually don't have to complete those because those courses are already waived. Now, there is the chance that you want to attend a 2-year school for maybe 1 semester or 1 year, and that is okay too. At that point, I would definitely encourage you to use your resources, which I'll talk about on the next page, to make sure that you're making the most out of your time at that school. You want to make sure that the classes that you're taking will transfer. Also, make sure that they're of interest to you as well. So some of those resources to make sure that your credits that you're taking will transfer to the 4-year schools that you're interested in are on your screen. So transfer guides and academic plans. A lot of institutions will offer these guides to students where it physically shows you exactly how the course from the school that you're currently at will transfer to the school that you're looking at. Now, some great tools in addition to those guides that colleges offer would be SC Track, the South Carolina Transfer and Articulation Center. You can log on to their website. You can actually put in all of the courses that you're taking and complete your 4-year plan depending on where you want to transfer later. So that will really keep you on track, and that is a tool I highly encourage you to use from the very first semester that you're attending that 2-year school. Comparedly to North Carolina, they have the College Foundation of North Carolina, and you can use that resource. It's very similar to SC Track, where you can go in and plan your transfer as well. And another couple of resources would be the college catalog, so you can log on to all different universities, view their college catalogs, see exactly what courses are required for every major that they have, again, to make sure that you're taking those classes that you can at the 2-year school. And then lastly, take advantage of your transfer admissions counselors, both at the 2-year level and the 4-year level. We are here to help you. We want to make sure that you're making the most out of your classes, and we will most of the time, at least for Coastal, will offer unofficial evaluation of your credits, give you a track and a plan for 4 years to make sure that you are making the most out of your courses. And then lastly, we're going to talk about applying to four-year schools. These are just tips that I give students. You know, if you're looking to transfer, you still have 2 years to really start thinking about this while you're at the community college. But some things to think about would be the application due dates. So first of all, when will the application open? And when do you have to have everything submitted by? Then you'll also want to look at the transfer requirements. Now, these are often different than freshman requirements. So typically speaking, a transfer student is anyone that has attended a 2-year school or another institution after high school. So if you have done that, you're considered a transfer student. You'll have to meet the specific requirements for whatever school that you're applying to. Typically, you're going to want to look to see if they require official transcripts from the 2-year school. You're going to want to see how many credits does the school require you to complete before you're able to transfer. You're going to see if there is a required GPA and make sure you're working towards to keep that GPA so you can apply to these schools. You're going to want to see, does the 4-year school require you to submit your high school transcript or your SAT or ACT scores? And lastly, you're going to see if an essay or letters of recommendation are required as well. Those are all things that you can start thinking about during your time at the 2-year school, you know, keeping that GPA number in the back of your mind, keeping how many credits in the back of your mind that you have to complete in order to apply to those 4-year schools. And another factor that I like to point out is a lot of students don't understand that sometimes you're not able to order an official transcript if you have a hold on your account. And we see a lot of students running into that issue when they're applying to our institution. They have a hold on their account at their 2-year school, which prevents them from sending us an official transcript. So that is also something that you are going to want to stay on top of. But that is all that we have. We are now going to open it up to questions. If you do have any questions, feel free to write them in the Q&A chat and we will answer those for you. We also have our contact information on the screen for you. Feel free to write that down. You can reach out to any of us if you have any questions. We will be reaching out to you all as well in the next upcoming weeks, just to check in and see if there were any unanswered questions that you had. All right, let's see if we have any questions.
While y'all are thinking about any questions, I think one of the big takeaways I want you all to get from this is that regardless of where you are, junior, senior, high school year, we have to really think about that forward long-term plan. We're not asking you to commit to what you're going to do for the rest of your life, because we do change our careers 7 times in our life. We're just asking you to think about a 2-year and a 4-year idea. So that's a big thing that some students get overwhelmed with that piece of it. And so just kind of think about that as a takeaway.
All right, so we have a question here. How easy is it to transfer from one 4-year college to another 4-year college? So great question. Sometimes students are in a place where they want to stay home, but the closest school to them may be a 4-year institution and not a community or technical college. So you have to choose that option. It's also very similar. The only thing is that credits may transfer differently. The biggest thing you're going to want to look at the 4-year school that you're starting off at is, does the school that you want to transfer to offer the same program? Do the classes that you're currently taking match the classes at the 4-year school that you want to transfer to? It's along the same lines as an application process, but with that, you're going to want to start out even earlier to make sure that you're working with both schools to make sure that the classes that you're taking will eventually transfer to the school that you do want to go to. And this one says, do you have any idea if there are major differences between the SC and NC articulation agreements? So it really depends on the school. So schools in North Carolina and South Carolina have different ways of evaluating credit. So within South Carolina, we have our way with all technical colleges. Typically each school, like for example, let's see, I actually have it here. We have our little book that will show you how credits will transfer from all technical colleges in South Carolina will transfer to Coastal. And other schools in South Carolina have those as well. I believe North Carolina has it for those schools as well. But typically when we're speaking about courses that you're going to be taking at the 2-year school, a lot of them will still transfer to any 4-year school no matter where you go. You're most likely going to be taking that English 101 or English composition, introduction to psychology, biology 1, college algebra. All of those general basic courses typically will transfer to other institutions. There's some good questions. Thanks, y'all.
Also on that note is something to think about would be a lot of border states and border counties. For example, for South Carolina, there are a couple Georgia schools on the border that offer in-state tuition for South Carolina students to attend those border Georgia schools. So those are options also for students who are exploring all 4-year institutions, and it's another perk that would go along that line that Jenna was talking about, like, does this fulfill one of my check boxes of why this would be a good school for me?
Feel free to ask all the questions that you guys may have. Any questions about getting into a 2-year school? I'm sure Mia or Renee can definitely tackle those.
I'll give you a few more minutes. I like to let our introverts, typically you get 7 seconds as an introvert to type your answers. That's what we always say here.
Now, one thing too for students to consider, some of you all may be doing dual enrollment right now, and some of you all may be doing early college right now, in which you may be whittling away and getting a lot of college credit right now, and some students even finish an AA or AS while they're in high school. That is a fantastic start for your college career. And those may be more unique situations you find yourself in, because if you've already completed the AA or AS, but you're not quite ready to transition to a residential 4-year school, that's when we look at other options of maybe tacking on a second degree. So maybe you start off with an AA and now you want to do an AS and then transfer, but you have to be very careful doing that because it gets to a financial aid situation and also a situation of transferring too many credits to your next institution. So if any of y'all are dual enrollment or early college, you really need to connect with the 4-year institution that you're considering before you start making major decisions on tacking on more things to that piece. Jenna, do you have anything to speak on that, or Jessica?
I agree with that. Yep.
I agree. Totally agree.
And even when it comes to dual enrollment courses, you can still reach out to the either 2-year school or 4-year school while you're in high school to make sure, or even to just, if you're curious to how those courses will transfer in.
Exactly. We have another question. You want to read it, Jenna? Because I can answer it.
Sure. It says, my local community college requires a minimum unweighted GPA to place into college level courses. Is that a requirement for all community colleges?
Now, right now, what we're doing, because we are waiving test scores, not necessarily your GPA, but the courses that you took while you are in high school is most important, because that's what we will be evaluating in order to place you in courses. So we have this system called multiple measures that we're using, where we take all of the grades that you made in your 4 top math classes, or your 4 top English classes, and then we basically come up with an average, and if that average falls within that multiple measures, then we're going to put you in the next college level course that you would take had you been placed in there through testing. So it's not that we're looking at your GPA. We want you to have a good GPA, but we want to see what you did, because we are waiving test scores. We want to see what you did in high school, so what grades you made in high school.
And that's pretty typical of most schools. You may do awesome in your math classes, but English is not your best area. So you may place into an upper level college ready math class, but your English, you may need a little refresher in some intro areas. So that is very typical of most colleges, actually 2 and 4 year nowadays. So just be conscientious of that too, and focus on the individual grades of those courses, just like Jessica said.
And then we have another question that asks, are there a maximum amount of credits that can transfer? So from a 4-year view, at least for my school personally, and I believe other schools do as well, we do have a maximum amount of credits that can transfer in. Typically it's 76 credits from a 2-year school, and I believe, don't quote me on this, somewhere around 96 credits from a 4-year institution can be transferred in. But again, these can vary depending on the institution. And that's something that you'll also want to look up before you do plan on transferring, to make sure you're getting the most out of the courses that you're taking.
Jenna, why is there a maximum? Is there a residency issue?
So it's actually part of our, I believe, graduation requirements that a certain amount of credits have to be completed at our institution in order to achieve, you know, the Coastal Carolina University degree.
And that's typical of most 4-year colleges. They're not expecting you. You ultimately need 120 college credits to graduate. They're not expecting you to transfer in 118 credits from a different school and only take 2 credits at Coastal, and then you get a Coastal degree. That's why most 4-year institutions require that you do take a little, your last chunk of credits at their institution to fulfill all those graduation requirements.
And for us, a lot of the foundation or, you know, prerequisites, general education requirement classes can be transferred in from a community college. But as soon as you get up into those 300 level courses, let's say Marine Science 411, that course cannot be transferred in from a 2-year school because it requires that higher level of teaching that can be accomplished at the university level. All right, we have another question. This one is, if I need 3 lab science credits for a 4-year college, is it okay if I graduate with 2 lab science credits in order to transfer to a 4-year? Let me read that again. It's credits for a 4-year. So yes, so you, oh, go ahead, Renee.
Well, no, it just sounded like she was going to complete 2 out of the 3 at her 2-year and then save that 3rd one for her 4-year.
So yes, that is okay. I encourage you to complete the 3 if you can, but if you cannot, that is okay. A lot of schools, especially liberal arts schools, I should say, will require a lab science. Typically it is 4 credits though, but there is the option that you may be able to have those credits waived. That depends on your major, that depends on the academic advisor. You may be able to get a petition to have that waived, but it really depends on the school that you're at, and that's something that you can reach out to those 4-year schools to see if that's an option, if that will count towards your lab science. With this question, so I know that for South Carolina students, it's required in high school to have 3 lab science, and if that is what you're talking about, then you may want to talk to your guidance counselor in high school to make sure that you're meeting the graduation requirements for high school, because I do believe that in South Carolina, you're required to have at least 3 lab sciences.
That's a good clarification point for sure if you're thinking about entrance high school requirements versus college requirements.
Right. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you all.
All right. Well, if there are no further questions, we will go ahead and wrap up this panel. Thank you all for joining us today. If you'll give me 1 second, I'll get our thank you slide ready for you guys. All right, so thank you all for joining us once again. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick survey. It'll only be 4 questions. We'd really appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions being hosted, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions at CACRAO.org. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as the other sessions recordings at CACRAO.org. Thank you and have a great day.